We're on 44. We're supposed to be on 45, but we're on 44. The last thing we were studying was the turbot zaveshet, the upper part of the windpipe, of the food pipe. So we're discussing if that's the area of shechita or not. So we discussed how far up. We said Rashi said until the hand can hold like 3 or 4 fingers, and how far down can you cut on the veshet. So we said from Rav Nachman ad Kadesh Yishar until it's the hairs, until it's hairy, which we said that was inside the stomach already. That was the assumption. Now the Gemara says, Eily, is that really so? Ba'amar Ravina Amar Ganiva Mishmei Derav. Ravina says in the name of Geniva, in the name of Rav. On our charts, I don't think we're going to have Geniva.
What a name.
Yeah. However, on this chart here, Geniva would belong as a friend, possibly student of Rav, even though it says Mishmei. So maybe put in here like Karna type of thing. However, Ravina says in the name of Geniva, that would need to be a different Ravina, because Geniva is much earlier. We have Machlekes in Geniva and Rav.
Geniva or
Geniva. Geniva.
He stole the cheese.
So we say, what does he say? He says, Tefach beveshet samach lekeres. If you work your way down the esophagus, close to the stomach, 1 tefach close to the stomach, zeo keres apnimi. That's considered the inner stomach. Now, in the Mishnah, we made a distinction between the inner stomach and the outer stomach. We said that the inner stomach, the inner stomach that has a hole, that's perforated, that has a hole, so that's a treifa. The outer stomach, that needs to be torn by the majority. So what is the inner stomach? And now we're learning that the inner stomach is 1 tefach up the esophagus. That's going to be the inner stomach. The near a hole would make it a treifa. The Gemara asks, Amai ki koshachet bekeres koshachet. Why did Rav Nachman say, in the name of his father-in-law, Rabbi Baravua, why did he say that you can shecht all the way down until where it gets hairy, which is the actual stomach, if you have to stop 1 tefach above there on the esophagus? It doesn't actually reach if the esophagus is all smooth without hairs in the inside. So we just learned from Geniva in the name of Rav that that's considered the inner stomach, the lower part of the esophagus, the 1 tefach down there. So how can you do a shechita there? You're shechting in the stomach. So the Gemara says, Eima tefach bekeres samach leveshet zeo keres apnimi. It's the opposite. It's 1 tefach in the stomach, close to the esophagus. That's considered. That first tefach of the stomach is considered the inner stomach. The rest of the stomach is considered the outer stomach. Now, why should there be a difference in the stomach? There's 1 tefach in, 1 out. So, Rashi explains that there's one part of the stomach that's protected by the ribs. That's considered, that first part of the stomach, that's in the rib cage. That first part would be considered the keres apnimi, the inner stomach. And then the rest of the stomach that's below the ribs would be the outer stomach. So that first tefach has a different status than the rest of the stomach. But over there, it's a perforation makes it, a hole makes it a treifa, as opposed to it being torn. That's the first answer. Iba Yasema, if you want, you could say a different answer, which is going to be very different. Kikama Rav Betura de Mashar Tvei. When did Rav say that, Gniven, the name of Rav, that it's a tefach next to the Veshet is the keres apnimi? That's because over there it's an ox that's very hairy. It's in the stomach. It's hairy in the stomach. So the hairs go up into the esophagus, one tefach, and that's what we said before. One tefach in the esophagus is considered the inner stomach. So you only have in the esophagus till the last tefach to do shchita, because the hairs go up the beginning of the esophagus also. I assume the hairs sort of move it along. I don't know, is that the...
In the esophagus or in the stomach?
Well, I thought the esophagus sort of like constricts.
Right, peristalsis. Is muscular contractions.
And then in the stomach, what moves it along? Is it also muscles, or is
Stomach's mother-in-law. Squeezing, I mean,
no, there must be something that's moving it.
Yeah, it's called peristalsis, what he's saying.
But it's
peristalsis
also muscles.
It's the muscles inside the esophagus, right? That's moving it all.
Yeah, but what moves it in the stomach?
Technically, it also the
Gravity.
lining
Is
of
it gravity?
The
Gravity
lining
also.
of the stomach is totally different than the lining of the esophagus.
Especially by an animal.
Yeah, and I'm just saying. So I think
Okay.
that's the main thing.
By humans, we have hair in the trachea that moves things out, like mucus. So if a person's smoking, it kills those hairs.
That was the
So what are the hairs? What are the hairs called?
cilia.
Cilia. Okay.
No relation
Cilia.
to
Hairs in the
women's
Esophagus, on the lower part, the first tefach of the esophagus in an ox.
An ox. And when an ox is a castrated bull, or is it, they use ox to mean a bull?
The
bull.
family.
The whole family of animals, right?
If it was castrated, then it would be treif.
Is it treif? I don't know if it's treif. It would be a mum. I don't know if it's treif. I don't think it's treif. We're gonna learn later. An interesting thing. Okay, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Shmuel. Rav Nachman says the name of Shmuel. This is an important one. Shmuel is a teacher in Bavel. Rav Nachman is a student of Shmuel. Straight under. So Rav Nachman says in the name. We had Rav Nachman a minute ago, and Rav Nachman then was talking in the name of Rabbi Baravua. You see that they put Rav Nachman married Yalta, Rabbi Baravua's daughter. So before it was in the name of Rabbi Baravua, now it's in the name of his teacher Shmuel. So Turbet Saveshet Shenitel Kulay Milechi Kasher. If the upper part of the esophagus is removed from the lower jaw, it's kosher. But it says kulay, it's entirely removed. Vitana tuna, and it was even taught in the Mishnah. Rashi points out that the word tuna is a way of saying that us sound at the end is a way of saying us. Tana didan. That's what Rashi gives us that Aramaic grammar there. Nital lechi hatachtan ksheira. There's a Mishnah later on that says if the lower jaw was removed, it's kosher. So, okay. So if the lower jaw is removed, it's kosher. That means it's removed from the esophagus. Maskifla Rav Papa has a question. We jump down several generations. Rav Papa's a student of Abaye and Rava. So we're down to mainly a student of Rava. At least that's how he's usually quoted. So Rav Papa asks on this. He says, you can't uproot the pipes. And here, that's what you're doing. Granted, you didn't pull the pipes out, but you pulled the jaw out. So that's taking it away from its location. So the Gemara says, well, Rav Papa can ask on Shmuel, but Rav Papa kasha masnisin. But it works the other way when it comes to the Mishnah. I have a Mishnah that's a question on Rav Papa, because Rav Papa is not going to be questioning the Mishnah. The Mishnah question. The Mishnah is a contradiction is a problem for Rav Papa. So The Mishnah said, "Nitalech atachten kosher." The Mishnah says if the lower jaw is removed, it's kosher. Or if Papa's making it a problem with the uprooting the signs. The Gemara says, "Bishleim masnisin l'Rav Papa lekasha." The Mishnah we can answer, and we can explain it even according to Rav Papa. Hadi ikar iaker ikure, hadi igum igume. So, iaker ikure means that it was taken out from the jaw and from the flesh, and igume means that the jaw is removed, but it's still attached to the flesh. So the bone is taken out, but the flesh is still in place, so it wasn't removed. That's why it's kosher. Now, if it doesn't have a jaw, it can't eat. We're talking about an animal that's going to be fed, or else it's going to die. So it would have to be that you're going to have to feed it by, someone's going to have to feed it. The baby bottle. The baby. Because it can't rip out the grasses. Okay. So, hadi igam egume mi Eily simanim. That it was the jaw was taken out from above the pipes. El Shmuel kasha, but according to Shmuel we have a question because Shmuel's words were that it was entirely removed. The Torah Tzaveshet was shenitel kulai. It was totally removed. That means that it's not attached at all. The Gemara says, Lo tema kula ela ima rubai. Don't say it was entirely removed. Say it was majority removed. That was an adjustment to the words, and now we answered. That's how we answered a question. The Gemara asks, Amar Rabbi bar bar Chana Amar Shmuel. Rabbi bar bar Chana says in the name of Shmuel. Let's see, Rabbi bar bar Chana is going to be here, probably in Israel. Yeah, Rabbi bar Chana is in Israel. He's put over here, but he was in Bavel as well. So he's in the same generation. So you can see next to Rabbi Yochanan is Rabbi bar bar Chana. He learned by Rabbi Yochanan. Many times we have Rabbi bar bar Chana in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, but here he's saying it in the name of Shmuel. He's Rav's great nephew, cousin once removed, first cousin once removed. So, because Rav's father Evu had a brother Chana, so Rabbi bar bar Chana puts him in there. So it says in the name of Shmuel. Simanim shendin daldlu beruban treifa. If the simanim are majority, nidaldlu is like loose. That's what it says, detached. Majority detached. Okay. So Amar Rav Shisha Brei Ravidi Hadi Ikbali Kuli. So 1 second, we had a question because we tried to answer Shmuel that said we said Shmuel says it's all taken out. How does that fit? With how is it still kosher? He said no, he doesn't mean that it's all taken out. It's majority taken out. He said, if it's majority taken out, but Rabbi bar Chana says in the name of Shmuel the majority detached is also treifa. So we now we explain. Rav Shisha Brei Ravidi. I don't know if we're going to see this on here. No, I don't know. This is one you're going to need your book for. Rav Shisha Brei Ravidi says, Hadi ikbel ikpule, hasam de efrek efruke. There's two ways of detaching it. One way is, two types of majorities. One is that it was peeled off carefully, so that the skin that's left is still strong, and it could heal back. The other way is when it was yanked. And yes, it's only the majority, but all the skin that's left, possibly in different places, is not even strong. And so it's all damaged, scarred, and that won't heal back. Even though there's still a minority that's left of skin, but that was already loosened by the. Okay, a new Gemara. Psukas Agageres. The severing of the trachea. Tana, Kama Psukas Agageres. This is a classic Gemara question. How much is the Psukas Agageres? We didn't say what it was in the Mishnah. You know, whenever we quote a small phrase, and in the Hebrew you have these two dots. That's a quote from a Mishnah. So even though it doesn't say it, it's a quote, but that's. So it says, how large is it? So the Gemara says Beruba, the majority. So listen to this. The Kamaruba, how much is the majority? Well, the reason why it's asking this question is because it doesn't mean roivaveh, the thickness, which that's the statement that it's roivaveh. However, some say that what it means is roiv chalala. Now, the reason why this is a problem is because, can I hold up this book?
Yeah. We need a knife. We need a bamboo shoot.
The front of the trachea has a thicker skin than the back. It's actually, we're looking down here, so we're looking differently. Here, let's look at the blue picture, at this one here. So you can get halfway, if you include the skin, your halfway line is above the halfway of the empty area, because that skin is thicker than the lower skin. So it says roivaveh, is it the majority of the thickness? Do you include the skin to get your 50%, or do you start from the chalal? Chalal is the space, the empty space, and then the majority. You have to measure it differently, because in other words, you have two circles, but they're not exactly one in the other. So, okay. Some say this, some say that. Ahi psukas agageres. What's the story of the psukas agageres? Dasalakami derav. It was cut. Right. Question was, is this a treifa? It came in front of Rav. Rav was an expert in treifas. Yosef kabadikle. Rav was sitting and he was checking it by the majority of the thickness, which is a stricter opinion, because you're going to get a majority with less being cut, and that means it's going to be treif. Amrli Rav Kana v'Ravasi. Rav Kana and Ravasi said to Rav, we have Rav Kana on the chart. It's right here. This is like a first generation Amayra, and Rav Kana is his student. And Ravasi, if it's the same Ravasi as that's a student of Rabbi Yochanan, then he would be over here if he traveled. So
But the majority of its thickness is above the Rav Chalala.
Right.
So why
Which
is
means-
that stricter?
because it becomes a treifa before it's severed all the way down. Before it's
Stricter for becoming a
Stricter for
treifa.
becoming a
I'm
treifa.
thinking of the
Of
kashrus
shchita,
part.
right.
Yeah.
So here we're dealing with the treifa issue. So they tell him, Amalei Rav Kana v'Ravasi l'Rav Liman Tana Rabbeinu b'Reiv Chalala. Our master taught us, our teacher taught us, that it's the majority of the space, not the majority of the thickness. So Shadra Kamei to Rabbi Bar Bar Chana. He sends this to Rabbi Bar Bar Chana, who apparently was another rabbi in the town. I would like it to say Rabbi Bar Chana, but I looked in the Dikduke Seifrim, which is the variant manuscripts, and it has Rabbi Bar Bar Chana. He sends it to Rabbi Bar Bar Chana. My assumption is that he's younger. So in Badka B'Reiv Chalala V'Achrei, so Rabbi Bar Bar Chana made it kosher. The Zavan Minei, and Rabbi Bar Bar Chana bought from it. In other words, Rabbi Bar Bar Chana wasn't the owner. The owner of the animal is taking it to this rabbi and then to that rabbi. So Rabbi Bar Bar Chana buys from it. But Tleisar Astire Pshite, for 13 astiras. Astir Pshite is a half of a dinar, which is 3 ma. A dinar is 6 ma. Half a dinar is 3 ma. So the large astira is much more expensive. How much is a regular astira? It's remember it's
4 dinars, 4 silver dinars.
4 silver dinars is a regular astira, and that's much more. So this is a 4. This is 4. This is a half. This is an eighth. This is an eighth of a regular one, a stira pshita. Let me tell us. So, okay. An
This
eighth
is-
of a large Tyrian coin.
That, yeah, it says they were minted from gold, and then here it's
Or it's
referring
minted
to
for copper. Okay.
And this is brought to prove that he thought it was kosher?
Yes.
Because he paid for it?
He paid 13 coins for it. For the rabbi is buying the meat. The Gemara now asks, "V'hechi avid hachi?" How could the rabbi do this? V'atanya was taught in Rabbi Bar Bachana was taught in a brisa chacham shetime. Well, first we have another issue before we get into the buying. But if one sage says that it's impure, ein chaver rashai latar. His friend, the other sage, is not allowed to say it's permitted. It's pure. Asar ein chaver rashai lahater. If one forbids it, his friend can't permit it. So how could Rabbi Bar Bachana say it's permissible when Rav was saying that it's prohibited? So it's Shani Hachad Rav Le'Yasser Meisar. The difference is Rav, if you look carefully, Rav was only examining it. Doesn't say that he forbade it. He was examining it by measuring the width, but he didn't actually pronounce it. Many times the rabbis will say, take it to another rabbi, I'm not going to say anything. So that way they leave it open for someone else to...
Press the button.
You see, if a rabbi doesn't know the answer, he's going to have to say, if there's no one else, he's going to have to say, I don't know if it's permissible, I'm going to have to say it's forbidden. So he doesn't want to do that because it could be that it's permissible, and why should the person lose out for whatever the question is? So he leaves it open. Even the Eire Bechacham, but once it was paskined, it was ruled by a sage, how could he eat from it? Vaksiv, this is a Gemara we quoted before. Va'oimar aha Hashem Alekim hini nafshi lo mituma v'navelo trefa lo yachalti mina urai v'adata v'lei ba b'fi basar pigel. This is Yechezkel that Hashem tells him to do these things, and Yechezkel is saying that he was so righteous, he never did anything wrong. So hini nafshi lo mituma. My soul has not become impure. Shlo yaharti b'yom lavil de tuma b'layla. I didn't have forbidden thoughts by day to become impure by night. It needs to have a mission. Nevela treifa lo yachalti. I didn't eat a nevela or a treifa. Shlo yachalti basar kais miel. This is the reason why we quoted this Gemara before. Mm-hmm. The Gemara before was discussing if an animal is sick and you shecht it very hurriedly, you quickly shecht it. Is this permissible to take a sick animal to shecht it? So we quoted this pasuk in the interpretation on it that Yechezkel wouldn't rush an animal to be shechted before it died. And pigel, which is if the kayin has the wrong thoughts, that flesh never entered my mouth. I never ate from an animal that a rabbi had to paskin on to say that it's kosher. Rav Nassan says that it means that the gifts to the kayin weren't removed. He never ate from that, even though possibly he could have eaten it before and given it later. So here's our question. How was he eating, Rabbi Bar Bachana, eating from meat that a chacham paskin on himself? So the Gemara says, Hani mila detalya b'svara. That's only something that's dependent on logic. However, Rabbi Bar Bachana agamrei samach. But Rabbi Bar Bachana wasn't using logic. He was using a tradition from his teacher. His teacher said how to measure it. So it wasn't a problem for him to follow the protocol of how to measure this. And that's what he did. Now, Rashi explains that what does it mean, the Talya B'Svara? He says that if you have to compare different things or different colors or different things one to another, so those comparisons are subject to the person's judgment. So if we'd be subject to judgment, so then that would be something that maybe he doesn't want to eat. However, if it's not subject to judgment, it's just clear, this is the rule, and that's what his teacher told him, so then that's not a problem, it's kosher. They would say that Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, he had a question once. He sent a telegram to the Shalom Eshiv. Rabbi Yosef Shol Natanzon was the Rav in Lemberg. So they asked him, why are you sending a telegram? Why don't you just write a letter? It wasn't like an urgent, just write a letter. He says, no. he's going to write a letter, then I'm going to get a letter back. If I get a letter back, he's going to write to me all his reasons why. I don't want to hear the reasons because I might not agree with them. If he did. And then I'm still going to be in doubt. What am I supposed to do? So if I send a telegram, he's just going to tell me, yes, yeah, pay by the letter.
Stop.
He's just going to send back a telegram.
Right.
So then here's the Paisik, he tells me that's what it is. But the reasons, they confuse. Okay.
If he had email, he'd send in a motion.
The Gemara says, "V'tepekle mishum chshada," but we have another problem. It doesn't look right. It looks like maybe he's being bribed. There's suspicion here. Chshada means suspicion. The Tanya, starting the Brisa. Dana Sadin, Zika, V'chiyev, Tima V'tiyar. He ruled the judgment. He vindicated. He made guilty. He made impure. He made pure. Asar V'hitter, V'chein Eidim Sheyidu. And same as with witnesses that testify. Kulam Hashem Likach. They're all allowed to buy from this. However, Amar Chacham Harchik Minakir. But the sages say you should go away from things that are disgusting, min adaimalai, from things that are similar to that. Which means that it could be that there was he was involved. This was like an inside thing that he brings him, he says it's kosher, and then he gets a good price. And the Gemara says, Hani milimidi demazmin mishuma. That's only something that's sold by estimation. So then it's possible, the rabbi says that it's kosher, they're going to give him a better price on it.
Yeah.
However, hacha metakla muchach. Over here it's sold by weight, and that can't be adjusted. So if it was sold by estimation, then they're going to say, oh, they gave the rabbi the good price because he just made a ruling on it. This is has to be Rava. This I checked in the Dikduke Seifrim. That and they quote also the Rif, and it also makes sense that it's Rava. I'll explain in a second. Ki had the Rava Shari Tarfita Zavan Mine Bisra. Rava, he permitted a certain treifa, and then he bought meat from it. Amali Bas Rav Chizda, the daughter of Rav Chizda, who's his wife, I'll show you in a second, says, my father would permit a bechar for Zavan Mine Bisra, but he wouldn't buy from it. So here, on this chart, so you have Rava, not Rabba, Rava, because Rava was married to the daughter of Rav Chizda. He was the second husband, her second husband. See Rav Chizda here?
Oh,
he was married to the daughter of Rav Chizda. Oh. So Rava allows a certain treifa, and then he goes and he buys from it. So Rav Chizda's daughter, says, my father used to do this, but he would never buy from it. And she's surprised that her husband is doing this when her father wouldn't do that. Now Rashi points out that Rav Chizda was a kohen, which is going to be important in a moment. We'll see. Amalei. So what she said was that my father allowed a bechar. See, the rule is that a firstborn animal needs to be given to the kohen to be brought as a sacrifice. However, if it has a blemish, then it goes to the kohen as a gift. It's not a sacrifice. It belongs to the kohen, but it's not a sacrifice. So Rav Chizda looked at the animals to see if it had a blemish on it, but he wouldn't take from that animal because that animal was meant to be a sacrifice and he permitted it. So she's saying my father would look at a bechar to see if it had a blemish, but he would never buy from it. Amalei hanimi buchra. That's the reason why your father, Rav is explaining. The reason why your father Rav Chizda would do this is because the ashuma mizdabin. That's a firstborn that's sold by estimation. You weren't supposed to take a sacrifice that had a blemish that you were allowed to eat and sell it by weight. It didn't look right that you're measuring it out in the marketplace. So it was just sold by estimation. So hacha mitkala muchach. But over here it wasn't a sacrifice that's being permitted to be eaten by the general public. This is a regular animal. There was a treifa. So it has nothing to. It's not being sold by weight. It's not being sold by estimation. It's being sold by weight. There's no reason to assume that maybe I was involved in this, to a conspiracy, to permit it, and then I'm going to get a good price. He goes on. He says, "Ma'yika, what could be the problem? Mishum malaisa, they're going to give me a good piece of meat. Kol yom malaisa zavnali. They always give me the best piece of meat because they respect me.
So the prime cut.
It's the prime cut." So it says it has nothing to do with me permitting this animal. Okay. Amar Rav Chisda. Rav Chisda says, we're going back to the Rav Chisda. Before we mentioned the daughter of Rav Chisda. We don't have a lot of conversations from her. She was very dear to Rava. Rava complained when she died. In that story in Brachas, the dream interpreter said there's something about the house is going to collapse, and afterwards Rava sees the documents of the dream interpreter. It says everything goes after the interpretation. So he says he didn't pay the dream interpreter. So he says, I'm upset with you over the daughter of Rav Chisda, that she died because of his interpretation. Then she did say to her father that she wants to marry both of the students. He asked who would you like? She said both of them. So, but other than that, I don't know her.
Both
actually,
or either.
She said both.
Both.
And then Rava was quick.
Progressive women.
Well, Rava was quick to say, I'll go second. Because he understood it meant one would die. And
Didn't catch that one.
Doesn't have
So-
to be book smart.
Let him go first.
Street smart.
So the first one was Rabbi.
yeah, Rami Bar Chama.
He died first.
Right.
Is he a famous guy too?
Yeah.
No, like Rabbi.
He made the paper.
Yeah.
It's big.
Amar Rav Chisda. Now we have Rav Chisda speaking. Ezer Talmud Chacham. Who's a Talmud Chacham? So, I guess there's differences in halacha if someone's a Talmud Chacham. Now, it's always explained that why is a Torah scholar called a Talmud Chacham? It's always said because he's a Chacham, but he's always learning. So he considers himself a student. However, I've heard one person say that Talmud Chacham means, the way he put it is, he's a Talmud Chachamim. He's a student of teachers. So it's the but usually it's not said like that. Talmud Chachamim.
It says over here that Tosfos says that Talmud Chacham is different from other people with certain halachas. For example, a person can trust a Talmud Chacham